So welcome Julian Ricard, Business Development Manager from 3D at Depth.
Welcome. Thanks for the interview.
First of all, how was the Subsea Expo 2020 so far?
Well, the show's only been open 20 minutes, but already we've had quite a lot of interest in the stand. I know it's delayed the start of the interview somewhat, but thanks for bearing with us.
How do you provide your client data?
Yeah. So we provide data to our clients using traditional methods normally, initially. There are a lot of options. We obviously have to fit with the established way of working in the industry. So traditionally that's 2D CAD drawings or even paper drawings. And we're able to provide that in the same way as other systems that are on the market. But we're a new tool in the toolbox. We can provide tens of millions of very accurate measurements, whereas the customers are used to getting maybe 120 or 130 measurements, and that's decimated to a single measurement. We do the same, we decimate to a single measurement, but we use tens of millions of measurements to get there. So whereas before you would, perhaps with an acoustic system, you would make between 120 and 300 acoustic measurements and derive the positions. With acoustic systems you tend to dock into the hubs where you're connecting the pipes and measure the angles directly, whereas we would land lots of beams on a flange and use those many measurements to derive angles. So we work in a different way. We are contactless, we are auditable to seawater conditions, so we put CTD from the water in the system, and this takes out the refraction effect. It's important to remember this is an optical system.
There's no camera involved in this kind of
camera involved. So any imaging is derived from, as a primary system, it's a measurement device, but it makes so many measurements you can derive images. Whereas you can work the other way around. You can use an imaging device to derive measurements, but then it's very hard to tackle distortions caused by refraction in the water. And refraction changes with the amount of salt in the water, which changes due to all sorts of factors such as rivers and evaporation, and depth also affects refraction. In the same way it affects acoustic devices. So we offer a traceable optical measurement where each beam is corrected.
What is your future aspiration for your technology?
So at the moment we sell the technology as a service, we don't sell the sensor. But our future aspirations would also be in the energy industry. We would like to do more in renewables and oil and gas, because much of the things we measure in oil and gas, there are similar problems in wind farms, so we can help with integrity in those areas as we do with oil and gas. So we can measure vibration, we can measure curvature of things like pipelines and or cables. We can look at scouring, and we can make volumetric measurements of soil. So if there's scouring occurring around a pile, we can measure that as well.
Okay, that's great. Is your product can be used for other energy area apart of oil and gas industry?
The other energy area we want to get into going forward, our future aspiration is the nuclear industry, was the product has a very long operating range. And this is quite beneficial to the nuclear industry because currently, if you get close to a radioactive source, it shortens the life of the device. Whereas we can maintain a longer operating range, and therefore the device will have a much longer life in reactors and so on, because we're able to work over tens of meters, and we can read things like etchings on rods perhaps. So we haven't done it yet, but we hope to soon.
Fantastic. Let's go on the screen to demonstrate more about the product that 3D at Depth showcasing at the Subsea Expo 2020.
So this is the product here. It's typically mounted on a diver tripod or an ROV. It looks like a camera, but it's not a camera. It's a time-of-flight LiDAR. And our clients use it because it has potential to save them money. We can acquire a lot of measurements quite quickly. There are two ways of acquiring the data. The ROV can fly, if you like, over structures and acquire data, or where very high accuracies are required, we can land and take measurements, and that's when the system is extremely accurate. So to give you an idea of some of the applications, our most common area is oil and gas. The system is most commonly used for dimensional surveys. What's quite nice about it is you may have a certain scope, but you capture millions of points. And only a fraction of those points are used for the measurement in the scope. But if the data is kept, the client can use it later. And in this example, this is a subsea metrology. And using some methods, that can take 12 hours. We can acquire that data between 1.5 and 3 hours on the bottom, which is a massive saving if you think this is being conducted from a vessel which may cost many thousands of dollars an hour. This is an example of a new style of oil field structure. This is a plet. So because it's 3D data, even if we acquire it sat down, the point cloud is very manipulatable. So you can fly around the structure, look all around it, and we even have a method of communicating it in virtual reality, and not just from one point. People globally can dial into this virtual area and look around the structures, take measurements. At our core, we are a service company, so we do not sell the LiDAR. It's unique patented technology, and we use it to do various measurements subsea. This is an example of the LiDAR in use. So this is a plane wreckage somewhere off of the Marshall Islands. It's quite special. It's a plane called the Douglas Devastator, and here we collected 90 million measurements. This is actually a drape, so the LiDAR was used for the measurements. There are limited drawings of this plane, and there are no examples on dry land. All the examples are on sunken aircraft carriers. This is in Milan, in Italy, and these are some statues in somewhere around Naples, and this was footage used by the BBC. Going back to the Devastator, which is the name of the plane, the intention is to recover the plane and restore it and put it in a museum. Unfortunately, the plane's been down there a long time and it will disintegrate, quite probably, when it's lifted. And the LiDAR is used to measure the plane so that when it's reconstructed they have some baseline measurements to work to. And it also helps them understand the distortions and damage. The plane's not a war grave. It was ditched by the pilots because they ran out of fuel. The pilots, as I understand it, survived the war, so that's also why it's especially rare, because many of them are not that way.
Okay, so we wish you all the success for the next 2 days in subsea 2020, and very nice talking to you.
You too. Thank you very much. Cheers. That was great.